What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new channel that I'm going to be starting up here. I'd like to make a channel where we can focus a little bit on the fusion format of the Dragonball Z collectible card game. As far as I can tell, there isn't anyone online doing this right now. I know there are some guys who have done some deck profiles and things like that for Panini, and if you go digging real far, you can get some of the old score deck videos from back in the day. You can still find a couple of those, but there isn't anyone really covering the fusion format. So I thought it'd be kind of nice to show off some of the decks that I've built in this format, and eventually we can get into showing off some other people's builds, go over tournament reports, things like that. But I thought it'd be a nice place to get sort of a cohesive vision going for just a little bit of healthy discussion about the format itself. We've got the Facebook group, and that's all cool and dandy, but there isn't anywhere to really sit down and sort of delve into this outside of posting a picture of your deck and getting some comments or something like that. So I thought it'd be nice to cover that here. For anyone who's not familiar with what the fusion format is of the Dragon Ball Z trading card game, it is a format created by Tim Batow that combines the new Panini version of the card game as well as the old Score card game from the early 2000s. When that's all put together, you've got a format that's a lot of fun, kind of like Legacy or Vintage or something like that in Magic, where you get some combos going that never really should have existed, so you can really kind of break some of the mechanics in the game, and it tends to be a lot of fun. You go into it knowing that some things are going to be a little ridiculous. Tim has went through some great lengths building up some various card legalities and things like that, banning and restricted lists and stuff like that to sort of help balance it a little, but it's a really fun format with a lot of creativity to be had. You've got essentially 19, almost 20 sets worth of cards now to use, and that really allows you to flesh a deck out and make something really cool. I thought it'd be cool to start off here just showing off this here is a custom one I've had made, but it is the attack table for the fusion format. It's unique to this format. It's different from the Panini one. It's different from the one accepted for the Score format if you were still playing retro. It essentially helps balance some of the crazy power levels that some of the Score MPs had, capping out at 10 million, so things like Vegito and Kid Buu and stuff like that are still in the same sort of bracket as something, say, Cell or something like that, so you're not quite as outrageously overpowered in some situations. So this, if you want to get into the format, you'll need, to either memorize this or have one of these handy. There are a lot of guys who make some really cool custom ones. I really liked this one, so I've got that set up here. And I thought it would be great to sort of start this journey here with a deck that would be sort of familiar to some Panini players who weren't necessarily familiar with the fusion format itself and the Score card pool, because I do know a lot of players got into the Panini game without ever even having played the Score version. So I would like to start out with a Devious Frieza deck. Devious Frieza was a build that was ran in Panini, and I think has a lot of viability in Score as well. There's a lot of Frieza named cards that help make some of the attacks pretty ridiculous and helps improve the stack a little bit. If you take a look at the mastery first, constant power, all your attacks do an extra stage and an extra life card of damage. That really helps with pushing some of the bigger attacks through. Black is kind of notorious for having low damage output, so having this mastery to add the damage is nice. It does have a once per turn power too as well, where you can discard a card from your hand to banish the bottom two cards of your opponent's discard pile. If the card you discarded is a styled black card, your opponent discards a card from their hand. This mechanic works in well with some of the other cards too. This deck does a lot with throwing some silly combo attacks and stuff like that, because it is fusion. We need that to be a little ridiculous, but it also does a little bit with hand discard and control in regards to your opponent as well. To get started, I'll just go right into the MP stack here. First thing you'll notice is we're going to use a different Frieza than Panini was granted. This one is from the Score Capsule Corp Power Pack. It was a container of promo cards, and this one sort of helped make Frieza a little bit better, because he wasn't very good in Score either. You got 850,000 for a max power level, so you're not going to get super high on this first level, but that being said, your goal is to sort of get to your next one as quick as you can here. You do have a constant combat power when you perform an attack with a Frieza named card. It's a focused attack, which means it can't be stopped by a defense shield or omni blocks, things like that. It has to be stopped, you know, if it's a physical attack, has to be stopped by a physical attack, physical combat card, sorry, if it's an energy attack, etc. It does an additional +2 stages of damage as well, so add that with your mastery and your attacks start to get pretty big pretty quick. During your rejuvenation step, if you place a Frieza named card into your life deck, shuffle the bottom card of your discard pile into your life deck, which really just sort of helps in keeping cards in the deck, keeping you cycling through, getting into your good combo cards and things like that. This is the holy roller of the deck, if you will. 150 million for a max power level. It's pretty ridiculous. Physical attack, attack table, life cards, which is cool, plus the 1 stage, plus the 1 life card from your mastery. You gain 3 stages when you use this ability. Rejuvenate a Frieza named card in your discard pile or banish zone, and if you do, you can use a critical damage effect to capture a Dragon Ball, destroy an ally, lower your opponent's anger. You can really do a lot with this level, and with that power level that high, you're really laying down some big attacks with this level. It is an awesome place to be, and realistically it wouldn't be bad to just stay here. That being said, if you do get sent to your level 3, you drop back down to 1 million for your power level cap, but you do get the ability here. Your attacks deal +3 stages of damage, and you may also use your level 1 powers. So all your attacks are doing +4 stages because of the mastery and +1 life card. Plus, you get to use your level 1, which gives your Frieza named attacks +2 stages. So now your Frieza named attacks are doing an extra 6 stages and a life card without even looking at the actual damage they do. Plus, you still get the Frieza rejuvenation abilities off that MP as well, which is awesome. The level 4 here, destroy the top 4 cards of your opponent's deck, search your life deck for a Frieza named card and put it in your hand. You may also use your level 2 powers, which lets you get the Golden Frieza power there back, which is a great power. This one is good too. 1.4 for your top power level. Still, again, not huge, but nothing to really scoff at either. This is a good level. Really, though, you'll probably spend most of the game at 2 or 3 if you were to get pushed away or something like that, or if you happen to anger out over it. This level, though, isn't bad if you end up here. And then with this deck, I run the Supreme Kai Sensei. I think that this Sensei is very good. There are a couple of other options you could run with. North Kai gets a lot of play. He stops your opponent's mastery from having an effect, which is great. This one, though, does give you 11 cards for the Sensei deck, which helps out. I really like, though, this ability. Once per game during your non-combat stuff, shuffle up to 5 styled cards in your discard pile into your life deck. This is huge and is a great help to the deck itself. One of the big joys of this deck is dropping some of the crazy combo energy attacks that you can drop. So, you know, something like 40 life cards worth of damage. And if you were to get those just discarded out of your deck for damage, it's kind of a bummer. The deck does work well without dropping those attacks, but it is really cool to see one of them go off. So I like this guy. The contents of your Sensei deck will vary based on your meta. That being said, with mine, I like to run a lot of anti-anger kind of stuff. Always finds a place to remove a Dragon Ball. Earth Dragon Ball Capture gets a lot of play for me, so that I can just steal a Dragon Ball from an opponent if I find that I'm going to be going against, you know, Lord Slug build or something like that, where I would need to worry about that. So this, I think, is a great Sensei for the deck and does what it needs to do. And then we'll go kind of quick through the deck. I'd like to keep these videos to, you know, 15 minutes or so. They'll probably be a little shorter in the future because we won't have the intro at the beginning, but I'd like to go through what sort of each of the crux of the deck is and what it does and what the different cards will do for you. So if we get started here, we'll start out with just the the non-combats, or the setups, if you will. The first one we've got is Frieza is ready. This card is great, and is a very Frieza in nature kind of card. When your main personality takes life cards of damage, his attacker takes twice as many life cards of damage as well. Limit 1 per deck, use when needed. This card is very similar to Villainous Visage in the Panini game, if not almost identical. So this card is great. It helps with your Frieza named MP and brings a lot of attention to... They really need to question whether or not it's worth throwing that big attack at you, because you've got options like this and Visage that will really help negate some of the pain of a big attack against you. Black Weakness Drill is an awesome card. At the beginning of each discard step, your main personality can pay a power stage to make the opponent discard all of their cards from their hand. This is awesome in the regard that you can make it at the cost of 1 stage, so they don't get to take any cards into the next combat with them, which is great. There are a lot of cards in the Score game especially that let you keep what was in your hand. There's Stop, there's Saiyan Truce card, things like that let you keep what was in your hand without discarding down to go into the next combat. And depending on some of the masteries that you come up against, Broly's will run this a lot, and things like that will have 7, 8, 9 card hands going into combat. So something like this is huge. And then we've got 3 copies of Black Smoothness Drill. It was recently updated to be back to being limit 3, which is awesome because this card is huge. Having various options to get it back is great. We'll go into combat cards here next, or as the Panini version of the game would call it, events. Some of the names and things were slightly different in the Score version of the game. Obviously, we'll start out with Time is a Warrior's Tool. This card is huge, should be in every deck. There's no reason not to have this in a deck. Stop all attacks from an opponent for the rest of combat. It's huge. Villainous Energy Sphere, again, doesn't need much introduction. Use when an event is played, cancel the event of the card, or the effects of the card, sorry. Your opponent discards the top card of his deck. This is great. Really helps stop things like a Time is Warrior's Tool, stuff like that. So we're going to run 2 of those. We're going to run Frieza Smiles. This is a card that has been updated to be limit 1 per deck. It stops all energy attacks or physical attacks in this combat if it's played as the personality's first card. So when you go into combat, you just drop it and you're like, I'm going to stop all physical attacks this turn. That really is cool. It really helps out with keeping some of your blocks in hand. And this deck doesn't run a ton of blocks, lower than I normally would like, because of cards like this and cards like Time and things like that. Overwhelming Power, limit 2 per deck. This card is awesome. It's considered a styled card, so it's considered black, so it affects your mastery, as well as a named card, so it's considered a Frieza card for your personality, and for the bread and butter of this deck, if you will, when we get there. If this card is placed into your hand by a card effect, use a critical damage effect. That's awesome too. If your opponent's power level is higher, if your power level, is higher than your opponent's, discard up to 2 setups and drills. Just a great card. We're going to run the 2 that are allowed. Going to run 1 copy of Black Scout Maneuver. Name a physical combat, energy combat, or event card. Search your opponent's life deck for all copies of that card and remove it from play. This is awesome and can really put a kink in a lot of strategies. Great card. Should be in every black deck. Back in the day, actually, in the Score version of the game, this was not considered a black style card, and that was really cool. You could run it in anything. We're going to run 2 copies of Stare Down. If you wanted, you could run 3. There's room, and we'll talk about it a little bit at the end here. You could run 3 to sort of flex it out a bit. But 2 copies of Stare Down works well for me. Look at your opponent's hand, choose a card. They discard that card. Great card. Black Secret is an awesome Score card. You got an Endurance 2, which is always good. Any Endurance is great. Look at your opponent's hand. They skip their next attack or attacks phase, and then the next attack you perform this combat does +2 life cards of damage. So, drop this card, look at their hand. Oh, they've got an energy block, so it's time to drop a big physical, because now you know what's coming. We're going to run 2 of that as well. That'll get us out of our setups and events. Now we're going to get into the energy combat section of this deck. Go through it pretty quick. I don't want to waste too much of your guys' time here, but I do want to get into what some of the cooler stuff in this deck does. This is a limit 1 per deck card. Energy attack, costs 3 stages to perform. If successful, your opponent discards 2 cards from their hand. Great card. Hand control, always good. Here we get into Frieza's Supernova. Energy attack, costs 3 stages. Damage 5 life cards plus X, where X is 3 times the number of Frieza named cards in your discard pile. This card is what this deck does. If you can drop these, they're awesome. There's something like 19 Frieza named cards in the deck. Your Mastery and your level 1 and 3, or level 2, I suppose, but really 1 and 3 with this end up, consistently hitting 40-something life card energy attacks. We're going to run 3 copies of that just because it is critical. It is the point of this deck. It is the fun that this deck can have. It is why we run Supreme Kai Sensei, and this card is awesome. Not as cool in Panini because there were only a couple of Frieza name cards and they weren't very good. That being said, the Frieza name cards in Score are pretty good, or at least better than the Panini ones, and this card is great. Gonna run 3 copies of Black Exertion. Endurance 1, always good. Energy attack, so 4 life cards, cost 2. That's just sort of the rule with Score. Unlike Panini, it's always listed. With Score, if it wasn't, it was 4 life cards, cost 2. Empower 3 means you can add 3 life cards of damage to the attack to ignore the rest of the text, which is a cool mechanic. I wish they'd worked into Panini. But you can attach this card to your opponent's main personality. While it's attached and that personality is in control of combat, damage from your attacks can't be prevented. So no endurance, stuff like that. This card is awesome. Having 3 of that around is great. And if you do get one attached or something like that, you can drop it for a 7 life card, 8 life card, 1 stage attack pretty easily. Got Frieza's Fingertip Energy Blast here. It's an energy attack, so costs 4. Or does 4, costs 2. If successful, also lower an opponent's anger level to 0. Remove from game after use. This one is cool and is a Frieza named card, so you get some bonus from your personality. It does get removed from the game, though, which is a little underwhelming, but if it gets removed as damage, then it's at least still in the discard pile, and your level 2 can still go rejuvenate this. It's a great card, for a common especially, and works really well in this deck. Another limit 1 card, Frieza's Force Bubble. Stop all future energy attacks for the rest of the combat. It's a great card. It's half a time. And then our one actual energy block, Black Resistance. Stop an energy attack, raise your anger 1, 3 endurance. Great card. Run 3 of it. Good energy block. And then we can wrap up here with the physicals in the deck. This deck is just a little bit bigger than the energies themselves. We get 1 copy of Black Swivel Attack. Its physical does +3, +4 with the Mastery and a life card. Your opponent must remove from the game 1 non-Dragon Ball card in their hand. If they have only Dragon Balls, then they have to show you their hand. Which is a cool card. Helps again with the hand control. Black Body Destruction. Again, limit 1. +4 stages. Gets bigger with Mastery, or stops the physical, which is cool. Really is nice to have. If you declared it Tukiwaza, which means you're running all black with a black style Mastery, you didn't used to have to declare that in Score, so it's nice to kind of know what that does here. It's just sort of assumed, that if you have a Mastery, which you're required to in Fusion, that you have declared it Tukiwaza. You can discard a random card from your opponent's hand. Remove from the game after use. More hand control. Great card. Another limit 1. Black right kick. Endurance is always good. Physical attack +2 stages of damage. So you can empower to add 3 more damage. Or your opponent discards a card from their hand. Still very good. Helps with the hand controls again. Black drop kick with the cool Kid Buu Saga foil pattern. I really liked this foil pattern. It's a focus physical attack, so again, can't be stopped by defense shield or an omni block. Does +3 stages of damage. If successful, your opponent has to discard a card from the hand. Discard cards, actually, until they have 2 or fewer. This one is great. Got 2 of it in the deck. I love this card. Frieza's Irritation Grows. This card is cool, and Unfortunately, though, I would say it's probably the first card to go if you wanted to make some changes to the deck. So physical attack, also raise your anger 1 for every Frieza's irritation grows in your discard pile. That's cool. We're going to run 3 of it. There are a couple of other Frieza name cards that I actually don't have, which is a little blasphemous for this deck. There's Frieza's Daunting Bombardment, which is the primo Frieza named card, and it counts as a Frieza's irritation grows, which is cool. But I don't have any of those. I'm trying to run these without proxies, but it would be something that this deck could definitely run for sure. And if you had that, these would be even better. This, though, if you don't have the Force Bubbles, or not, sorry, the Daunting Bombardments, this might be a card you could swap out for a couple of other things in the game. This is Blank's Guard Crush, so Frieza's Guard Crush. Its physical attack does plus 3 stages of damage, and can't be prevented. It's considered a named attack for your personality, for construction, and gameplay. So, works with your mastery, works for your Frieza's Supernova, great card. Backstrike, considered a named card, counts as a Frieza card, physical attack, 3 stages, raise your anger 1, damage can't be prevented. Still, great card, great attack, but just again counts as more Frieza named cards. Black Dismissal is also awesome endurance, damage 4 stages, MP gains 4 stages, raise your anger 1, lower your opponent's anger 1, just does a lot for 1 card. Great card. Frieza's Captive Strike, this is not very good in Panini at least, but in Score, it has a place, and again, helps out with your Supernova. If it's discarded from your hand by a card effect, like your Mastery or something like that, you can raise or lower a player's anger 1 level. Physical attack, attack table stages, plus additional damage if you're on the various Frieza levels that will help with that. So it's not great, but it definitely serves its place in making your Supernova, 9 cards bigger. Black Hug Maneuver, physical attack, raise your anger 2. Staple card, I'd say, for black, and just auto run 3 of for sure. Black Buffer Block, this is a great score card and is limit 1. Stop a physical or an energy. Search your discard pile for a card that discards a card from your opponent's hand and put it into your hand. Remove this from the game after use, so you can really, continue to punish their hand during combat with this block. Black Finger Block, endurance 1. Stop a physical, gain 3 stages. Great block, good endurance. And then last card in the deck, the Black Knee Catch, 1 endurance, stop a physical attack, raise your anger 2 levels. I think this is a great card too, just good block, helps you get to level 2 faster. That being said, that covers all of the cards in the deck itself. If you wanted to make a couple changes to some of the ways that the deck is played and performs, there are a couple of other cards that you could swap in. Black Strike, I believe is the name of the card from Panini, is a great card, helps with more of the hand control kind of aspect. If you wanted to push towards that, there are some other cards that would do that in Score as well. You've got things like Black Energy Web that you get to do a couple of times and things like that you could consider running, but I think the deck works well as it is. If you do lose your Supernovas, some of the steam is gone, that's true. So having the ability to get that back with Supreme Kai is great. But if you don't have those cards, if you don't get to drop any of them, it's not the end of the world. The deck does perform well on its own. The Mastery and the Frieza personality itself, comboed together, do help make the attacks pretty large. It competes well against most of the decks I've played. It does have a little bit of trouble here and there, but I'd say it's a fairly competitive deck and is a great start for someone moving from Panini into Fusion, in that a lot of the Frieza name cards and things like that you'll run in this deck are all commons or uncommons from Score and will run you, $1 for a playset. So if you were to buy some of this stuff off of, Popo or something like that, it'd be fairly cheap to put the deck together if you didn't have any of the stuff. And proxies are legal in Fusion, so if you just wanted to make it yourself proxied, then it would be easy. It'll play fairly similar to a Devious Frieza from Panini, but you get some cool Score support. Well, guys, that was the first video here for my Fusion format coverage here. Sorry, it's 25 minutes here. I apologize about that. These normally won't be that long. This first one is going to run a little long just while I find my pace and everything. I look forward to doing more of these. I personally have like 14 decks built for Fusion, and I'd like to get into covering some other people's decks as well. One thing I think that would be really cool would be to discuss a couple of the decks that Tim Batow himself has built. As he created the format, it'd be kind of neat to hear from the creator. So we'll see where that goes. If you guys like, it would be cool if you'd subscribe, follow, like, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to try to do at least one of these a week, and as long as I've got cards and decks to build and people are interested, I'll keep making more. So thank you, and have fun.